So we have been on a bit of a journey over the last 4 years, and we have just built our fourth property, which is very exciting.
Property.
It's just completed and ready to be tenanted.
You're listening to Property Investor Tales, stories from the front yard. Here's your host, Tabitha Bright.
Hello and welcome to Property Investor Tales, stories from the front yard, where I get to speak to property investors from around Australia about their investing journey. My name is Tabitha Bright and I'm the head of coaching at Positive Real Estate, where we help people build wealth through property. With over 8,000 clients across Australia and New Zealand, there are some incredible stories to tell, which hopefully make your investing journey that little bit easier. My guest today is Hayley Beavis. Hayley Beavis and her partner Corey are 27 years old and have already amassed a portfolio with 4 properties in them. So today we're going to talk to Hayley about their journey and what it's taken to create a 4-property portfolio at such a young age. Enjoy this conversation with Hayley. Hey, Hayley Beavis, one of our own. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Super excited to have you here.
I'm super excited to be here this morning.
Oh, good. And while this podcast is largely dedicated to our clients and their journeys and what they've done with their investing and their experiences, I am tapping a few of our own on the shoulder because, obviously, although we work in this environment, we are, like everybody out there, investors, and we've got experiences, good, bad, ugly, exceptional, and I thought some of those are worthwhile sharing. For you guys that don't know Hayley, she's one of our property consultants here at Positive Real Estate. And a number of years back, how many years, Hales?
5 years this month, actually.
5 years. So 5 years ago, Hayley came and volunteered at one of our property game workshops. I was interested in having Hayley on as an assistant to myself and the team to learn some of the ropes and see where things panned out. And she volunteered her time. And the rest of it's been history, really, hasn't it, Hales? You've just...
Absolutely.
So she's rolled up from assistant to she's had a bit of a go at marketing and some other aspects of the business, but she settled where her heart truly is in as a role as a property consultant, because it's very property focused and client focused. Would that be correct, Hales?
Most definitely. I am the type of girl that scrolls realestate.com for fun. So getting into the nitty-gritty of property, I think, was definitely a key goal coming into the property scene.
Awesome. And so why I've got Hayley here today is because a lot of the feedback from everybody that I've been interviewing, when I ask that question, what would you tell your younger self? All of them say, get started as early as possible. I wish I started earlier. Well, Hayley's a prime example of somebody who started earlier. So Hayley, you do look incredibly youthful anyway. So do you mind me asking, how old are you?
I'm 27.
And when did you first start investing? When did you buy your first property?
It was when I was 23, so roughly 4 years ago.
Wow. Okay. And do you mind me asking, how many properties have you got with your partner? How many properties are you guys holding now?
So we have been on a bit of a journey over the last 4 years, and we have just built our 4th property, which is very exciting.
Property.
It's just completed and ready to be tenanted.
4 properties. Wow. So 4 properties in 5 years.
Correct.
Well, 4 years. 4 years if you, 3 years. Oh my God. I
4
can't.
years.
For all of those watching, this is an early morning interview and on a Friday, and clearly the 2 coffees haven't hit yet. Don't ask me to do maths in my head in the morning. All right, so that's awesome. And I wanted you to share some of your lessons for people, because we've got a lot of young people. We call you one of our young guns. We've got a lot of young people that are wanting to get into the market and wanting to invest. What would you say to some of these young people that are looking to get into the market?
I think it's a really interesting journey to be young and, be talking to a lot of my peers and so forth, and talking to a lot of people, obviously, on a day-to-day basis. A lot of people's excuses come from, blaming the market or other sources. And I just think stop blaming other things. If you really do want it, there is ways to get it. There's
Right.
the smashed avocado on the weekend. I'm one of those people that certainly hasn't given that up, but making different choices. You can eat smashed avocado at home just as good. I know that Corey loves Corey loves my smashed avocado. So just, stop sitting on your hands and get out there and talk to people that know what this journey is all about. And obviously there's some things that you can be doing to get into the market as soon as possible. And if you're willing, just go for it.
Yeah. And so tell me, what are some of those things that you might do?
Saving obviously is number one. So making those different choices. And I mean, we've been on this journey for over 5 years now, of course. I was a bit of a traveller before I got into the property scene. I didn't go to uni. I worked at Kmart straight out of school. And right from the get-go, I had a really strong focus on saving money. Of course, enjoying my life is another really, really key point. But, both of us, Corey and I, luckily, I don't say luckily, but, well thought out, are good savers. And savings is probably the key for us to get into this journey as early as we did. I was only at Positive Real Estate not even a year when I really started to want to jump into the situation. And, it does help being around people that love property, but I certainly had a love for property before I even came into this journey. So saving, number one. I think obviously if you don't have deposits, it's very, very hard to get into the market.
Yeah, absolutely. But there are incentives for young people out there, aren't there?
Yeah.
And there have been a raft of them, from builders boosts to, the first home buyers grant.
Yeah.
Last year, certainly there were, and the year before, there were developers that were offering, incentives to get into the market. And I mean, the market goes through cycles, as you know, Hayley. And, I was going to say double your age, probably, or close to, I'm 52. I've seen a few more cycles in the market than you have, just due to, obviously my age. And we know that the market cycles through and that there's opportunity at different stages. And at the moment, some of those incentives may have left the market because it's a very excitable market at the moment. It's a hot market. Property's moving fast, but there's different options, aren't there? And
Absolutely.
I mean, even down to the bank of mum and dad and things like that. Like, I've seen a lot of young people whose parents have assisted. And what was interesting about your journey, Hayley, is you didn't buy the family home first, did you? So tell us a little bit about that. What did you buy? So you were looking at investing and you bought your first property as an investment.
Yeah, our first two properties were investments. So we were pretty happy where we were living, renting. We had a very, very small rent, which was super lovely back then. You think about it today, and paying $100 a week to live in a home was pretty good. Good. Yeah, we were in a pretty good position.
Yeah.
We decided to make use of some developer incentives actually for the first couple of properties, and we really just bought what we could, the best we could afford at the time. And that's probably been another key point in all of this, is buy the best you can afford at the time. And that was a one-bedroom unit, a one-bedroom apartment in Melbourne.
Yep.
And we were lucky enough to get a developer incentive of the vendor paying 5% of our deposit.
Right.
That was actually for the first two properties. So that was pretty amazing. And of course, 5% of something that was worth $400,000 at the time is, $20,000 into our pockets, essentially. So being able to make use of those incentives and keep pushing us forward was a key factor in being able to push through the first two properties in the first, 2 years.
Sure. And, for people that may not have access to those incentives now because they're entering at a different time of the market,
Yeah.
it still doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, or you should be concerned about your trajectory and how slow it takes, right?
Absolutely. I think the earliest you can get in the market, the better. You can see that the market is on its way up and will continue to be. And, thinking about it or talking about it is not going to get you into the market any sooner. It's actually doing it and having the mindset to believe in yourself to actually get there. 5 years ago when I started the journey, people would ask me, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And for me, once I knew what I wanted, I would tell people all the time, I'm going to have 5 properties by the time I'm 30. And that was the key thing for me, that, write it down on paper, as silly as it sounds. But
no, not at all.
The things that you want, you just push and push and push. And I left my job as a waitress and basically said, see you in 5 years when I'm driving a nice car. And it's a really interesting journey with property, I guess, when my parents, they were investors when I was young, and I didn't necessarily know too much about the property market, I guess. I knew that they were buying some properties and they did a really, really good job in, I guess, buying good ones in good locations, but that was a slow journey for them. And it wasn't until I was probably in my early 20s that I really started to want to understand where they were and how they got there. And, in their early 50s, they actually retired based on property. They live off the rental income, and still today, got in their caravan and traveled Australia. So pretty cool journey for them. And I really wanted to find out how they've done that, for one. And obviously having people in my life that I can look up to in that sense. Even you guys, you have been a big part of my journey as well in pushing me and opening my eyes to what can be. So it's been really fun.
It's exciting. And when you have a good student like yourself, it's all the more exciting to coach.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that it hasn't come without its bumps, right? So that I remember
Totally.
we were so we have what we call normal problems and abnormal problems in investing. And normal problems are the stuff that you get used to dealing with over time. You build what we call investor muscle, and and you'll hit these all the time. Like I was talking to one of our other coaches, Sharon, who I'm actually going to interview as well, because she's got a really interesting story, and she's a client as well prior to joining our coaching team. And she was saying that even to this day, and she retired herself on property and has come back much like myself to coach and teach. And she was saying even now, she's just put her name down on a property, I think this week. She said she still gets buyer's remorse. Like you sign that contract and you go, oh, what have I done? I think it's a normal part of our psychology, whether we're hardened investors or fresh to it. And I remember when you were still my assistant, I still hark for those days. And we'd found a property that was going to work for you, and you're all excited about buying it. And I remember being in the office and you were signing contracts and you were talking to your conveyancer, your solicitor, and then the waterworks started, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Even being, in a position where you're surrounded by people that do it every day and, learning about property every day and understanding what people go through, it still didn't change the fact that it was bloody scary. That first property, signing the contracts, I sat in that office and went, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Help! And of course the waterworks came, and it really was an interesting few weeks through that, finance period, and obviously getting through the settlement period. And not everything goes to plan or like you planned it originally, but overcoming, I guess, that first property probably really set me up to understand that yes, there will always be some normal issues, which at the time I didn't know that they were normal. They were just very,
That's
very
the problem,
scary.
isn't it?
That's right. That's right. So everything that, became a small hurdle felt very, very big to me at the time. And even people that are coaches to investors,
Absolutely.
I still felt way out of my depth initially. And, it was very, very scary. Obviously not traumatizing enough though to stop me.
And this is the thing, that's courage, right? And this
Yeah.
is where, when we're on this journey of investing, we are stepping outside of our comfort zone, and we are building, like I said, new muscle around, we're expanding into a space that a lot of people don't go. When you think that, a large portion of our mentoring group are in the 1% club, the 1% of Australia that holds 3 or more properties, you are doing something outside of the norm. You're doing something outside of what 99% of the Australian public do. So it is going to feel uncomfortable. It is going to challenge you. And I guess that's why we obviously have, no, I guess, I don't know why I said I guess. It is why we have the mentoring and coaching program, because it does provide that safety net for people on
Absolutely.
the journey. And
hand holding, a bit of hand holding, and everything's going to be okay,
we all need it. We all need it.
Definitely.
And the coaching never stops, right? No. And so then you've bought a couple of properties, you and Corey, individually and together. And like a lot of investors, Hayley, you started going, well, how can I fast track my results? How can I get, is it time to look at a more complex deal?
Yeah.
And sometimes this can be a good thing for us as investors, and sometimes it can take us a bit sideways. And because if I had my time again, Hayley, I would buy a lot of blue chip property and not do all of the complicated and complex stuff I did, right? But hindsight is a wonderful thing. And I think sometimes we have to go through that journey anyway.
And again, I guess it's that buy the best you can afford at the time, right?
Yeah, it's very true. It's very true. But we often see these deals that are, might be advertised on the market, higher cash flow, higher, bits and pieces. And they can be attractive, developing duplexes, dual income. There's been all sorts of types of those properties coming through from time to time, depending on market cycles, NRAS. And now, of course, we have, there has been this space for NDIS, so the National Disability Insurance Scheme. There's some opportunity there that you've taken advantage of. But what I wanted to highlight in today's journey, without feeding you your answers, is where there seems to be something that is outside of the market norm. And in this case, with the NDIS properties, it's a higher rent yield, So when there's a higher rent yield, nothing is for free, and it comes with its own challenges. And I wanted you to talk me through the NDIS property that you've bought and built is going to be a fantastic investment for you. But for people, excuse me, that are looking for more complex stuff, it does come with its own twists. And even for somebody that is embedded in the company with everything that goes on, and you see all behind the scenes and you understand the upside and the trade-off, there were still challenges that you could not have planned for, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so talk us through what that looks like.
Okay, so it was probably about 12 months ago now, maybe even a little bit more. We started looking at, obviously, our next property choice, and we were originally going to buy our own home. And then when we started looking, my partner, he's a carpenter by trade and very, very particular and picky. So we couldn't find somewhere that we wanted to live for one and a property that we liked enough for two. So we decided to venture on another journey of buying an NDIS property. Now this is a 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom home. Three of those bedrooms are basically occupiable to participants in the NDIS scheme. And again, like you said, some higher cash flow for those properties. Now, of course,
because they're essentially rented, for people that aren't familiar, they're rented room by room.
Correct.
And subsidised by the disability insurance scheme.
Correct, yeah. So for one, a key point of why we, originally did this was it is essentially helping people with a disability, which I think is pretty amazing in the first place.
Yeah.
For two, why not throw a bit of risk out there and try something new? As we were discussing yesterday, Tab, being uncomfortable sometimes is the best thing to do to grow. So
100%.
I think even you said to me, Hayley, this is going to be different. Maybe don't go down that path. And I thought, no, we're going to give it a crack. So we, about 12 months ago, we decided to put a, deposit down on a house and land construction.
Yep.
And, it was a more expensive build than the standard home, certainly in that area. But we decided to choose location over, I guess, anything else. We were looking at some lower socio areas, but then we decided to move in for that little bit more expensive property into a nicer location that will obviously get some growth in the future as well. So that was a key point.
Yep.
Now, with the journey, it was pretty straightforward in the beginning. We were all the regular, in the beginning when I say signing the contracts. Then we hit the finance hurdles. Now with NDIS, of course, valuers don't see those properties as anything more than a house. And if they do see it as an NDIS property, basically it's, considered commercial and 70% LVRs. So obviously that's very large deposits, which we were not factoring in. So we did have a finance clause, but basically we had to go to 5 different banks to get us what we wanted.
Right.
So,
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that was 2 banks basically telling us, no, it's a commercial property, 70% LVR. We had 2 banks that valued it over $100,000 low. And then we had 1 bank that actually valued it on purchase price, and we were able to get 90% lending on that. So that was a good start with a few rocky points.
And one of the key reasons sometimes that banks value these types of properties down low is not because they're not worth what you're paying for them, but it's really hard to find suitable comparables in the area because when you're spending, you've got to think about the wet areas, right? Bathrooms, kitchens are the highest price point things to construct. Yeah. And so then when we've got a property where the renters, the tenants, the participants in the NDIS scheme can have a bedroom with their own dedicated bathroom, they're not having to share with anybody.
It's essentially got 3 master bedrooms in there and, another bedroom with an ensuite.
So you've got a stack of wet areas and it's more expensive, but then you try finding a comparable in the market and there isn't, because most houses will have 2, maybe 3 with a powder room at the most. So hence you can have some valuation challenges. That was one hurdle you had to get through. Awesome.
Yeah. Moving through the journey a little bit further, we did have some buffers in place, of course, because 1, for valuations, 2, things like furniture packs, in the beginning we needed it. Further along the line, we didn't need it. At the end, it really depends on who you recruit to look after the property, whether they want that furniture as well. So that was one thing.
Yeah,
it's
not property manager. No,
it's not a standard property manager. So with they're called an SDA provider. With those guys, they take their fees as well. So a couple of extra things. Things like $10,000 startup fees to get that in motion, 20% property management fees. And I mean, they're all different, but that's just, an average of what that looks like for a high physical support property. So moving down the line, and we were aware of some of these fees in the beginning, but big buffers was a huge factor for us, and a huge thank you, Hayley. Thank you, past Hayley, for thinking about future Hayley. Because that did help us along the way. So things like, fees, property management fees, furniture packages, which, is all in the mix.
Delays in construction.
That's another story, yeah. So the poor builder, really. We were lucky we signed a fixed price contract and fixed term contract. So, thank you, past Hayley, and thank you, Positive Real Estate, for obviously getting those inclusions in the properties and the builds, because we got to basically the end of our build journey and hit a few delays in terms of construction. So with that, there was changes to basically the certification that needed to occur when the property was built. To certify it, to put it to NDIS, get it certified, and on the 1st of July, just kind of as the property was finishing, those changes occurred. Now the builder hadn't taken those into account, and basically had to, we'd hit practical completion, paid our final build invoice, and thought that we were handing over, next week, and certification couldn't happen. So we had a few delays in terms of the builder had to move some walls, change the kitchen around, automatic doors, all sorts of stuff. So it ended up being around a 3-month delay for us. And, I really do feel sorry for the builder in all of this, because we were lucky enough, to get paid liquidated damages along the journey. Very, very frustrating, I can tell you that much. Because, the SDA provider had some people lined up to go in, it was all near unfinished.
You had tenants ready to go in and they couldn't move in. Explain liquidated damages to the uninitiated. So this is something that's really important that you get in the contract, which our contracts team always make sure that are in the contract. So when it didn't settle on time, what did that mean for you? You were able to claim?
Yeah, we were able to claim from the builder. So basically, if the builder doesn't complete in the time that is stated in the contract, they essentially have to pay us a certain amount per day that they run overtime in the construction. So essentially, we got paid week on week the amount of rent basically that we would be losing during that time. So
fantastic.
Yeah. So for the, the 10 to 12 weeks delay that we had, we did get paid market rent for that property, which is fantastic. Obviously, paying the mortgage on that at the time.
Yeah, I was going to say, you've got holding costs, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Mortgage, the rates were still coming through. So that was a really good thing. Yes, absolutely a frustrating time. We did lose a tenant, and now that the property is complete, we're a couple of weeks down the line and still looking at the moment. But things are finally looking up in that sense.
Fantastic.
We've got a really good team on board, so hopefully they can find someone ASAP and get the wheels in motion there.
Yeah. And that's the other thing with these slightly trickier deals is that, one of the trade-offs with NDIS is that it can take, 12 months to have all of your tenants in, because they take time to find the right people and the right mix of the household and so forth. So, stability for everybody. And so when we're looking at these more complex deals, as Hayley's kind of taken you through the top level of her story, this isn't something that you do as a first property. As much as
I think I just took a deep breath just then. Oh, yeah. The key thing in all of that was being set up in the first place and having buffers in place. And we knew this was not going to be a straightforward deal.
I think you had me reading you the Riot Act and probably a number of people in the company saying, Hayley.
But it's one of those things, higher the reward, higher the risk, I guess. And we took the risk, and hopefully the reward is a good one out the other side. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's certainly... one of those moments, you know.
Here's the thing about risk, right? We all like the idea of risk and reward. And often we think we like high risk, or we might think that we're up for it. But when risk shows its teeth, it can feel very different, and it can change. It can even change your brain chemistry, right? I've heard of people that have had extreme financial stress and ended up with, PTSD. Well, not disordered, but post-traumatic stress for sure around some finance stuff. On the very extreme side. Obviously, you've got a good team behind you. You had built some investor muscle. You knew what you were getting into. You had buffers in place, and you'd bought a property in a quality area. So if the NDIS stuff didn't work out, it was still able to be, it was open and a property that the general public would still want to use.
Absolutely. And that was a big decision that we made early, was that we were going to go into that better area that, has all the infrastructure, has all the whatever it needs to be a decent property, right? So if worst comes to worst, and I mean, this is into the future as well. If worst comes to worst, it's a sellable property in a great location. And of course, if we needed to rent it on the open market, I actually walked in there and was quite shocked at how nice it was, to be honest.
Awesome.
It feels like a regular home. So Fantastic. It would be minor changes to rent it on the normal market for us to, get a decent return. Who wouldn't love 4 bedrooms with 4 bathrooms, I guess, apart from the cleaning?
You've got teenagers, or elderly parents that you might have to look after. I mean, it sounds like a home made in heaven.
Everyone has their own space. So pretty cool.
All righty. And so in wrapping up, usually I ask people the question, what would you tell, what advice would you have for your younger self? Now, given that, without being ageist, you're 27?
27, yeah.
Yes, I remembered right. Given that you're 27, it's a little bit hard to ask you that because, you've had a number of years in the market, but you're obviously doing what a lot of us wished that we might have done. So is there anything else that you would like to share on your journey that you think is important for people to know and to understand that we haven't talked about?
Not necessarily. I think just the key thing in all of this is, like I said earlier, don't sit on your hands and wonder. There are, plenty of people to talk to that have done it in their journey. Get curious. I certainly asked a lot of questions when I was getting into this, and the first property is always the scariest. I can tell you now, no matter who's surrounding you, it still feels very overwhelming. But take the step into asking questions to people that have done it before. Get curious about their journey, get curious about what has got them to that point. And if you really want it, you will find a way to make it happen. So, set your dreams big. And as silly as they sound initially, it does happen. So just move through the journey, enjoy it. I can tell you now, once you've done the first one and you want to build that portfolio, it kind of becomes a little bit of an addiction. So I think that's at the point I'm at. Poor Corey, I go, oh no, let's just enjoy ourselves for a little while. And then all of a sudden I'm sending him links on realestate.com going, no, we've got to buy again. Corey, get saving. And the poor guy. But he's awesome. He loves the property journey himself.
Fantastic.
So it's a beautiful one to be on. So get on it, guys. Get on the roller coaster and journey of owning some real estate. I can see, my trajectory in a few years' time is looking pretty strong, and I'm very, very excited to have more choices, as the years go on. And
you've done great, hon. And I guess in wrapping up, the thing that I'd like to be really clear with everyone on, what has made Hayley successful in this space has been her and Corey's dedication to understanding what their outcome is. So Hayley's always been very clear on what she wants, the time frame she wants it, and then works back from there. And how is she going to do it? And she's used every tool in her toolkit, and she's done really well. But she's made choices that have, it's very hard to have your cake and eat it too. And so
smashed avocado tastes just as good at home, guys.
I second that, because I make my avocado at home too. And I love my avocado and feta with a squeeze of lime and a touch of chili and a bit of rock salt. And it's
absolutely
quality bread. It's damn fine. I could even go so far as to say, with the COVID baking thing, you can even bake your own bread. We can go all out here. But
sourdough.
Sourdough. On a final note, you're really good at setting your goals, Hayley, and you understand that, sometimes it doesn't happen exactly when you want it or exactly how you want it. You've chosen to invest rather than buy your owner occupied for now. But we've started having that conversation because I think, as one of your coaches, I know you've got a number of them that you tap into, which is very sensible, I might add. As one of your coaches, I think it's a good time to start considering getting your PPR, your principal place of residence, because we can start paying some of that down too when you're ready, and making sure that you've got that debt free and some fun stuff like that. So congratulations, young lady. It's awesome having you as part of the team, and thank you for sharing your journey. I was worried I was going to have to twist her arm for you guys. I did want you to hear it, because I think it's really good. Excuse me, I'm choking. Really, really good inspiration for a lot of you youngies out there. Be like Hayley.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hales.
Thank you for the kind words, Tab, and thank you for all of your support, of course. You've played a very big part in my journey as well, so it's awesome to have you as part of my team.
Oh, thank you, sweet. And we'll see you soon. Bye for now. Hey, thanks for listening to Property Investor Tales. Remember to subscribe so you get notified every time a new episode drops. As you can guess, I love hearing people's property investor tales. So if you'd like to share yours, then please get in touch with me via email at propertyinvestortales@positivementor.com.au. We would also love your feedback, and I would appreciate a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Remember, you can watch all of these podcasts over on YouTube at Positive Mentor or at positivementor.com.au. Until then, take care, happy investing, and bye for now.